welcome into the Gaming Discourse. I'm Tyler Frater alongside Richard D. the Cruz, who's not here today, and Chief Engineer Lieutenant Commander Connor Frater.
Good evening.
YouTube.com/The Gaming Discourse, Patreon.com/The Gaming Discourse. You can support us for $247, $10. Get your name in our video credits, early access to our videos, access to our Discord server, and more. This past Friday, I talked with Chet Falasek, who worked at Valve for almost 2 decades. He started Stray Bombay. They recently released the Anacrusis, which is a Left 4 Dead style game, but it's sci-fi, 70s sci-fi, which is a lot of fun, and I really enjoy it. But yeah, I reached out to Chet to see if he would be inclined to talk with me about a wide-ranging amount of topics. He said yes, and I think we had a really good discussion about all kinds of stuff. We went into obviously at Valve there's sort of the no boss mentality, but when he started his own studio, he talked about some of his struggles of moving into more of a leadership CEO position and what the responsibilities of a CEO are, and some of his game design philosophy, some of his writing philosophy. We talked about some stuff going around games right now, like how publishers are skittish and the state of the VR industry. We talked about a lot of stuff. I think it was a really fun, really good conversation. At the end, we even talked a little baseball. So yeah, go check it out. Just Chet Falasek interview on our YouTube channel. And I've got more interviews I would like to do. That's something that I always enjoy doing because it's nice to talk to somebody who really knows what they're talking about. This podcast is fun and it's nice to shoot our own opinions out there, but yeah, and it's difficult because people that have 30 years of knowledge in the industry, they're not always as accessible, or sometimes they just can't. They're because of NDAs or because they're currently working on things, they just can't divulge a whole lot of details. So yeah, when you're able to talk with somebody who has that sort of experience, I think you're able to learn a lot and get a really good idea of some inner workings in the industry. So go check it out. And then there's other projects I'm working on as well. Yeah, we've got news, we've got games. Connor, what have you been playing most recently?
Most recently, just continuing with Baldur's Gate and jumping back into Hard Space Shipbreaker.
Is there any new things, any new revelations you have about Baldur's Gate 3?
No.
Okay. Play the outro. Render soundcloud.com.
No, but I've been waiting to get back into U-Boat. It just went 1.0 on Friday, last Friday. I've just been waiting. There have been a few hot fixes, so I've just been letting those trickle in before I jump back in and start with. They added a new submarine type to start with, the Type 2, which is a little bit better than a canoe.
Nice. Okay, good.
Go into water.
It's literally 2 canoes stacked on top of one another.
It's 2 canoes, stacked so that it makes an airtight container. Yeah.
No, it's just 1 canoe that you have to drag underwater, and it has a little air bubble.
Yeah.
You get 10 minutes before it's all carbon monoxide.
Just like that
and you
scene in Pirates of the Caribbean with Jack Sparrow and Will.
That was Germany's first U-boat. It was just an overturned. It was an I don't know, overturned boat. That's the German word for an upside down boat.
Yeah. But yeah, no. The Type 2 is barely a submarine. 3 torpedo tubes in the front, none in the back, I believe.
None in the back. Okay, I wasn't even aware that German U-boats had a rear.
The Type 7, the one that you are typically going to play in U-boat, has 1 tube in the back, 4 in the front. The American equivalent had 6 in the front, 4 in the back.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, the American U-boats were stacked, but they didn't get a lot of action because they're primarily in the Pacific Theater, and they weren't utilized well during the war.
Yeah, and I was also gonna, because like in the, I don't know, the war in the Pacific, we're going out of our expertise area here, but as far as I know, the war in the Pacific was really carrier heavy.
Yes.
Like the Battle of Midway, the Battle of the Coral Sea, The idea was everyone goes crazy because as soon as you spot the enemy fleet, you just send waves of aircraft, and it's the first person to see the enemy. You send waves of aircraft and hope you do more damage than they do once you spot you. And the war in the Atlantic was different because eventually it became a defensive land war. So I'm sure there were still carrier battles that I've never heard of, but yeah, it's like not as and also you had less like oceanic ocean to cover because England was right there.
Yeah, you had the coast of Europe, and then
the Nazis weren't taking fleets; they were taking U-boats toward the eastern coast of the U.S., but they weren't taking like entire fleets out there.
They were sinking ships in New York harbors.
Yeah, which is crazy to think. Can you go to the New York harbors in U-boat?
I don't know if you can make it all the way over there, but you can go to the middle of the Atlantic, which is terrifying.
Yeah, eerie as hell.
And to my comment about the American U-boats not being like having a different war, that's not to say that they weren't effective. There was a year where I think it was 1943, where American U-boats sunk more boats than German U-boats.
Oh, I didn't know that. Interesting.
And that's when the U-boats started being utilized better. But then the war in the Pacific shifted dramatically, and there weren't any ships to sink.
Yeah, because Japan got beat down pretty quickly. Yeah. Oh, well, that's it. So that's something you're going to jump into then?
Yes, probably this week. I think the hot fixes are coming to an end, and it's going to be a rather stable build.
Nice, nice. What level of simulation do you think you're going to play on? Navigate by stars.
Navigate by sound. Now, I typically, because when you start up your game, there's different options you can select, which gives you like a difficulty percentage. I typically sit around 60 to 70% realism, because I don't want it to be a hard sim. I want it to have some leniency for funness.
Sure, definitely. Okay. Well, I have wanted to play Baldur's Gate 3, and
what's stopping you?
I'm putting it off. I don't know why. I have anxiety about finishing it because the ending fight is just so intense and so it's like I've been putting it off because it's like, oh no, I don't want to. But I have all the side quests. I'm completely done with Act 3. It's just the ending side quests that you have to do. So I mean the ending quests, because once one quest kind of appears like a side quest, but it puts you on a path of finishing the game. So that's kind of where I'm at. I'll probably finish that sometime this week, because I have like 4 hours left maybe, but you kind of want to play that whole session as one session.
Yeah.
Because it's all one big, it's the beginning of the Pelennor Fields battle, basically. It's the end of the saga, you know. So I have that. And then, I'm plugging away at College Football 25. Last week, I talked about my first season coaching the Central Michigan Chippewas. We lost in the MAC championship game to Toledo.
Sadness.
Which greatly disappointed me. And then I went and beat Appalachian State handedly in the Myrtle Beach Bowl.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I entered the next season unranked, and I decided to do the same thing. Out of the gate, number 1 team in the nation, Alabama, schedule, week 0. I scheduled Alabama, Michigan, Florida, and Miami. Those are my first 4 games. So it's going to be pretty intense. Alabama was really difficult. I could not beat them. I tried like 10 times to beat them. And then in my last game, I was up by 2 touchdowns in the third quarter. And I was like, all I got to do is run the clock out. And they scored twice and beat me 35-34. And I was like, you know what? I'll eat that. I'll just take that. So I went undefeated for the rest of the year. One game I forced won because I got annoyed. But I went undefeated for the rest of the year. 11-1. MAC championship game, Toledo again. Now I was like, hell yeah, revenge time. I beat them like 35-3. My defense was much better this year for the most part. And I'm learning how to call. I've never really learned how to call defenses in football video games because I'm always just like, I don't know, just play
Engage
zone. Yeah, engage it. I don't know, because it's like I never call. I was
overwhelmed the computer.
I was never like a big defensive player. I'm like better at calling offenses, but anyway, so I've gotten better at like calling defenses and stuff. So yeah, my defense was much better. I beat Toledo. I got into the college football the college football playoff. I had a bye week. The first game was against Virginia Tech, which I played today. And yeah, when I played Virginia Tech, they were up 20-7 at halftime.
Oof.
I had a really rough first half. I threw a pick, gave them an easy score, and my defense was not doing very well. And I was like, okay, I'm just gonna have to hope for some momentum in the second half. Got the ball back, went down, scored. They scored. I had the ball with like 2 minutes left in the fourth quarter, and I was down by 2. It was 23-21. And I went down the field. I ran out all the clock, took a timeout with 5 seconds left, kicked a field goal, went up 24-23, kicked it back to them, tackled the guy, and I won the game. It was like an ESPN instant classic.
The Michigan Miracle.
ESPN instant classic kind of game against Virginia Tech. And I was like, hell yeah, my defense got a couple important stops. So yeah, and so I only have one loss on the season, and that's Alabama. So I'm in the Final Four. Win this, and you're in the College Football National Championship. So I'm like, hell yeah, baby. Who do I got next? And I turn around, and it's like, for whom the bell tolls. Ding! And it just around the corner walks Alabama, the only team that's beat me this season. And I'm like, oh, damn. So I'm actually kind of psyched because that's a really cool scenario. So it's like, okay, like a rematch with Alabama, the team that are they going to book in my season beating me twice? Am I going to beat them and reach the College Football National Championship game? I don't know.
The start of a new rivalry.
Yeah, new rivalry. Joe, Michigan and Alabama.
Known for the blood feud.
Yeah, not sure what they're going to call that. The who the hell saw this coming cup? I don't know. But yeah, I'm really yeah. College football 25 is pretty good. I think there are some things that they could have done better. There's not any, as far as I can tell, like tutorial in the game. So a lot of the different like recruiting mini games and stuff, I have just had to figure out. Yeah. I could probably look it up, but I never remember to. This time around, I recruited much better than my first year. This time I paid a lot more attention to the recruiting mechanic, and I got a 4 or 5 star defensive end. My plan is to recruit really heavily defense, recruit really heavily offensive line defense. Skill positions I'm less focused on. I can, like, the quarterbacks I have now, they're both in the high 70s. They're both rated in the high 70s, and I'm running the offense fine because the offense that I run is a lot of power I. It's zone. It's a lot of medium to short range passes, curl routes, hook routes, drag routes, naked boots, waggles, stuff. This is all real. I'm not just making shit up. Stuff like that. So it's a lot of a mobile quarterback would help, but it's not a lot of like stand in the pocket and throw 25 yards downfield. I would like to work in the option, but I just haven't practiced it enough. That's the thing. One of the things about Dynasty mode I'm not a huge fan of is there is no practice mode in Dynasty mode, right?
Actually, I was watching someone play, and it's just buried in a menu.
Is there?
Yeah.
There are a lot of menus.
There's a free practice mode, and it's just buried in menus.
Oh, maybe I need to find it then. Because when you recruit players obviously play much differently, like quarterbacks. So I have 2 quarterbacks on my team, Joe Labus and Bert Emanuel Jr., who are both real people, both for Central Michigan. Labus is more of a pocket passer. He doesn't really run, so he stays in the pocket. He has a howitzer for an arm, so he can throw it downfield. Bert Emanuel is more of a scrambler. So think he can still throw it downfield, but think Russell Wilson, Steve Young, that kind of thing. Yeah. Not necessarily. I don't know if his speed is 92, so he could play a running quarterback, but he's not
more scrambler than
But I think I would say more scrambler, which I think is perfect for the kind of offense I like running. I like getting the quarterback out into space because that gives you more time to throw the ball and stuff like that. But anyway, because of their different skill sets, I can run sort of two different. I can put Emmanuel on the field and know, okay, now that he's out there, I have a quarterback with a lot more speed, so I can run certain plays, and the option to run with him is an option. Where with Labus, because his speed is like in the 70s, he can run, but if there's a linebacker, that linebacker is going to catch up with him. Where Bert Emmanuel, he's going to be faster than a lot of linebackers. So if I see that off the defense is in man coverage, which clears out the defensive backs because they're following their man, I can take off running with Bert Emmanuel and pick up some yards, and I have with him. There's a play that I run like on, I don't know if it's 2nd and 5 or 3rd and 6, one of those, like a 3rd and 6 is a passing down, but one of those downs and distances where it's like in the middle. I run a bootleg, which is a play where a quarterback runs. It's not drawn up. I modify it, but it's a play where a quarterback takes the snap and then runs out from behind the offensive line. And then usually there's a tight end over the top running a drag route, which kind of looks like a banana. It's also called a banana route, where it's just a slow sort of oblong, not like a direct route, sort of like a long curve. And then eventually it's parallel with the line of scrimmage, and you just hit that tight end and you're going to get 7 to 8 yards. So it's a good play to get a first down, but also if you have a running quarterback, you can get out there, and if no defense is there and the only defender is the guy guarding the tight end, then you can run and dodge away from that guy and get a lot of yards.
Those drag routes, that's how I took in Madden 23 or 24. That's how I took the Jets to the Super Bowl. Is just
with Aaron Rodgers? Was it that recent?
No, so it'd have been 23.
Okay. Who would that? That would have been.
I don't remember.
Oh, I can see his face. He played at BYU, I think. It doesn't matter.
But it was just consistent drag routes because the AI doesn't know how to defend against them. And 6-7 yards each time. Completion, just marching down the field. Short passes, an occasional long ball, but yeah.
Yeah, drag routes are difficult to cover because man coverage is difficult because you have to stay on your man and you're not sure where he's going to go. So even if you're faster than the guy, as soon as he cuts and takes off on a full sprint, you have to catch up with him. Yeah. Where the more effective coverage against drag routes is zone coverage, because then instead of having a man covering him, that drag route's piercing multiple zones, which means if you try and throw that, there's going to be a linebacker ahead of you that's either going to kill your tight end or undercut the route and get an interception or something like that.
Yeah, and that's where the passing precision, where you can lead or throw it behind. That's where that comes into play really well.
So is that mechanic in Madden?
Yes.
Okay, I love that.
It is fantastic. It gives you a real tactile sense of how you are playing.
Yes, and as I've been learning how to use it, I have thrown interceptions because I didn't know how to use it. But now that I know how to use it better, I have thrown passes into places where I couldn't have because I knew where to place the ball, so I was placing it away from defenders. That placement
with the lob, bullet, or normal pass, like press and hold or just press and release, it gives a real good finesse to passing.
Yeah, I'm glad they brought that into College Football 25. I was going to play the most recent Madden just to see I know it feels pretty similar, but I didn't know how many mechanics are basically the same thing.
I think they're the same.
They're the same game.
I think they're the same game, just different skins.
Okay, yeah. Okay, other than that, nothing else? Nothing else for you?
A point about, and this is tangential but related to the lack of tutorials.
Sure.
And I think it's come to a point where with sports games, they all play the same, so they just expect their audience to know. It's kind of like going into Baldur's Gate. There's an expectation of knowing at least a little bit about D&D, and this kind of has a parallel with how some retro style games are made, where there's not a lot of information given, but people forget that these games that they're emulating, not emulating, but they're paying homage to with these retro style games, came with physical books that were the tutorials that told you how to do stuff.
They did. Yes, they did.
And it's like, it wasn't just a mystery to us. There was a booklet that said, do this or this for this action. This is how you do this. This is how you do this. Even maybe like had a walkthrough of the first level to like give you a little hint on what to look for. Mm-hmm. Tutorials should be there in a game for people being introduced to the game for the first time.
Yeah, I think maybe on like EA Sports. There's probably a website that has.
Mm-hmm. You probably have to pay $10 to EA to get access to the website. I
don't know if it's that bad.
Sacrifice your first two children.
Sure, definitely.
Like go into EA housing and buy from the EA store.
Yeah, EA script. Start chipping away at their minds, looking for gyms you can buy FIFA packs with. Okay, is that it?
I guess I could dig into EA more, but no.
Okay, it's at the end. Thanks for listening. If you like our content, please consider subscribing or leaving a like and comment. You can find us at patreon.com/thegamingdiscourse. And our tiers are $2, $4, $7, and $10 and include getting your name in the video credits, early access, and access to our Discord server. Oh.
I've heard people doing it online with their custom teams, but I haven't heard offline with custom teams.
I don't see why you wouldn't be able to.
Oh.
I didn't even know you could do a custom team.
Yeah, the team
Dynasty mode. Oh man, that's what I should have done. but the problem is then your team doesn't have any cool like unique things. Like Central Michigan has their fight song, and all the schools have their fight song. Where if you create a team, do you pick like from a couple different generic fight songs? You just don't have a fight song.
I guess so. Yeah.
Okay, that sucks. I will say this year and the previous year, I made my coach's alma mater Oklahoma, and EA College Football 25 just thinks Oklahoma sucks. So. Both of their coaches have been fired, and I've gotten a job offer from Oklahoma 2 years in a row, and it's been difficult because I want to take that program to the pro. Maybe what I'll do is I'll build up Central Michigan, win a couple national championships eventually,
then go to Oklahoma,
and take the Oklahoma job and build it up.
Well, Oklahoma just sees the potential greatness of your coach. You went what 11-1. As Central Michigan
this year, I did. Yeah.
The previous year?
The previous year, I went undefeated. The previous year,
there you go.
Until I lost to Toledo, and then So I went both. I've only lost 2 games thus far in my career. 2 years thus far, 2 games. And now I'm playing.
And
Alabama.
You're an Oklahoma alma mater. They're gonna want you.
Yeah. So who knows? Maybe, like I said, maybe in a couple of years after I've collected a few natties, some natty lights, and got a few rings, got some of those chips. I'll take the Oklahoma job. Anyway, Oklahoma, if you're out there in real life, I'll take the job too. Just kidding. Okay, so let's talk about these Bungie layoffs. This came out, I don't know, was a few days after our last podcast. Yeah. It was probably the biggest story. Well, there were 2 big stories last week, and that's both what we're talking about this week. So 220 employees were laid off, this following the successful launch of the Final Shape, which is the latest Destiny 2 expansion, and layoffs last year. This includes veterans like Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy. In a statement, CEO Pete Parsons said, quote, "This morning, I'm sharing with all of you some of the most difficult changes we've ever had to make as a studio due to rising costs of development and industry shifts, as well as enduring economic conditions. It has become clear that we need to make substantial changes to our cost structure and focus development efforts entirely on Destiny and Marathon." CEO Pete Parsons locked his Twitter account as the news became public. According to Stephen Totillo does the GameFile newsletter, which is very good. 155 other employees are being moved to Sony Interactive Entertainment, while another group is being spun off to start a new game company inside Sony. Jason Schreier spoke with 10 current and former employees. I'm going to read a bit of what Schreier had to say. Quote, ambitious growth and some big misses led Bungie to lose money over the last 2 years, forcing the developer to cut costs, freeze salaries, and shed hundreds of workers. Sources described a company that grew too fast and tried to develop too many projects at once, spreading resources thin rather than prioritizing its chief moneymaker, Destiny 2. Most of the people were critical of CEO Pete Parsons, saying he had failed to take accountability for his own bad bets and that he'd been overly optimistic in his communication with the staff. Some said Parsons and other company leaders spoke of Bungie magic, confident mantra similar to ones preached by other elite video game studios, that they can make anything work, that they can make anything work out. Famously, BioWare magic is one thing he is alluding to there. So yeah, I have a few things to say. I don't know if I haven't played Destiny 2 in years.
I've never played it.
You've never played Destiny 2. Okay. Yeah, and I know like Paul Tassi is like a Destiny 2 creator. He's covered it, so he had a lot to say about what's going on. And I know a lot of people are really upset about this. So we're not going to be able to provide like how does this hit the Destiny community or anything like that. But yeah, sorry. Do you have anything you want to say off the top?
Like just right off the bat, the bolden part of the quote you have, due to rising cost of development. If Pete is listening, you're the CEO. You should be like looking forward towards these things. You should be like looking to the future and predicting how these costs are going. If the costs are rising, maybe don't commit to so many projects and don't go too expansive on projects and curtail your spending before it gets too bad.
Yeah, I think there's that. I think basically you've said it, like why start those? Why start other projects? Who made that decision, and why wasn't Destiny enough? So like I don't know. I think it's a complex question to ask, is like who made those decisions? Was it a collection of people? I don't know who is really to blame here, but I always find it difficult to think that it's some artist or a programmer or an engineer somewhere that has to take the fall for what is a decision that I assume is going to be made by people much higher up on the chain. Yeah, there's that.
Also, like, how many? What's the C-suite executive to employee ratio to where you could just drop one executive and keep 200 developers on staff?
Yeah, something like that. I don't know how. I'm sure Bungie pays well. I'm not sure of like what the different pay scales are. But cost of development is something that bothers me a lot, because it's like, well, what's the point of live service economies if all of a sudden they're not even good enough? Because the whole point is games are too expensive, so we need microtransactions. Games are difficult to sell, so we need free to play, and we need loot boxes, and we need
constant revenue.
And we need a bunch of new bullshit that we can throw on a store so people can buy and shit like that, right? So it's like, okay, so that alleviates this problem of games becoming too expensive, but apparently not. So I don't know, that's frustrating. It's frustrating because I don't think any of that stuff is necessarily better for games as a medium or as an art form. So why do we have them? If they're not helping keep people in jobs, if they're not making games more sustainable, then what's the point of economic systems that are, in some sense, exploitative, and in another sense, just suck? And industry shifts. He said that in his statement. Like, what does that mean? Industry shifts. What? That's really vague.
It's business jargon.
And I don't know what it means. As if there isn't a market for certain things anymore. But it's like, well, I wish they would have expanded on that. Because to me, a lot of times that can be an excuse. The industry, the market doesn't want this anymore, or there isn't a market enough to sustain this anymore. And it's like, well, what do you mean that there isn't a market? There's not a market you think will give you a big enough return, or there just materially isn't one. Like, it doesn't exist at any scale. I think those are the things there's a distinction there, and I wish we would hear about that distinction. Now, the problem is we're not going to hear about it because that's not how the games industry works. But also, I think it's just because I would assume it's the other one, and maybe this is too cynical of me, but I would assume it's just there isn't a big enough market for the things we're going to get rid of, so we're just going to cut these people or something like that, which really bothers me. So yeah, I thought it was a really vague statement, and that annoyed me. And there was the whole thing with Pete Parsons buying cars, and I don't know if you saw that.
No.
Buying like sports cars and stuff. So yeah, and it's like, who, with all these, I don't know, with all these layoffs, who ultimately makes this decision? Why was Anthem made? Who made that decision?
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's say that it was, I forget the name of the people that led BioWare. Well, let's say the decision to start Anthem was made by the creative director. Let's say Naughty Dog. Okay, let's say tomorrow we learn Naughty Dog's making a game as a service, and it was Neil Druckmann's decision.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but was it really Neil Druckmann's decision, or was it Sony keeps pestering me about this? It may be safe if we did this, because then it's not really as much as Neil Druckmann's decision, as it is pressure from publisher or a larger entity wanting to induce something into existence, right? And I think that's kind of what happened with Anthem. So it's like, so whose responsibility is this? If it's not Pete Parsons, then where is it? I don't know. Somebody has to stop passing the buck eventually. Like somebody somewhere at either Sony or Bungie, and it's hard for me to believe that 220 employees, that they should be casualties of something like this. And they're also casualties of the pandemic bubble, I'm sure, which really bothers me, because that was something that we talked about when the pandemic bubble, in the middle of it. I remember saying this is not going to last. So don't bulk up and get ready pretending that this bubble is going to plateau and then eventually there will be another rise coming, because that's not what happened.
Here we are on the tail end of the second year of massive layoffs in the game industry.
Yes.
2 years after the bubble burst.
Yes, and that's so annoying, because it's like that could have been avoided. I don't know. And so yeah, it's really dissuading, and this one is, I don't know, all these layoffs are annoying for different, or anger-inducing for different reasons. Arcane Austin, I said this in my interview with Chet, it's hard for me to believe Arcane Austin just had to shut down, that there was nothing, or Tango, that there was nothing anybody can do, those studios just had to shut down. Difficult for me to believe that. And it's difficult for me to believe that there's nothing that Bungie could do. And it's also annoying in Bungie's case that, again, it's like, what is the point of live service economies if even the successful live service games aren't as sustainable? Now, the other interesting factor is that Bungie's revenue has been dipping. So I don't know what has led to that. I don't know how big of an effect that has on this decision. But I know that the past few years, I don't think Bungie has had the same type of returns as previous years. Is there anything else you would like to say about this?
No.
Unionize.
Yeah.
Obviously, a union can't. If these people were in unions, and maybe some of them were, I don't know. That doesn't stop this from happening. But at least maybe there's some kind of net. There's some kind of backstop that helps with this. That makes us a little more palatable, or provides some kind of cushion for when irresponsible decisions are made by executives and higher ups who rarely
feel the consequences of their
greed and short-sightedness. Anyway, okay, ready to move on?
Yep,
let's go.
GameStop closes Game Informer. According to Kotaku's Ethan Gotch, staff were called into a meeting on Friday with GameStop's vice president of HR. Until the publication was closing, everyone would be laid off and begin receiving severance. There was a statement posted to Game Informer's Twitter, but sources told Kotaku no one at Game Informer actually wrote it. And then earlier today, there was a update on Game Informer's Twitter that reads, Our 33-year legacy deserves a genuine goodbye written by a former Game Informer member. We're heartbroken by the shutdown of our publication, and yet we leave with pride knowing we poured everything we had into it. In the words of our editor-in-chief, be well, play well.
Yeah, and then the Game Informer Twitter
Was nuked.
was deleted by somebody, which is incredibly petty and incredibly annoying. Yeah, so Brian Cohen is the CEO of GameStop, and he's like a, I don't know, like a cult leader. I don't know if you looked into meme stocks were like a thing, and it was funny, and they morphed into like a conspiracy theory.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have looked into this.
I've tried to avoid it.
Like that there are like way more shares in GameStop than GameStop is actually saying. I go watch Dan Olson's video about it. But some of the fuel to that fire has been poured by this bored asshole billionaire named Ryan Cohen. Let me tell you, this doesn't make him look much better, and it's also just incredibly petty. And so much of Game Informer is now lost because the website is just gone. So I'm not sure what was archived or if some of it can be found. But so in terms of preservation, it's just so meaningless and malicious just to close up shop like that. It's infuriating, and yeah, it makes me mad. From a games journalism standpoint, we're back to the same discussion that we always have, which is, okay, so what's the future look like? For one, traditional media is difficult and it's dying.
Yeah.
Running websites with an owner just doesn't seem like it is sustainable, because invariably you get SEO hounds that want to maximize that. You get guides and tips hounds that want to maximize that. That's what's going on at Kotaku. And that reduces the type of interesting and important reporting that doesn't play into those things. So what is the alternative? The alternative is new media or worker owned, which seems like the future, but that has its own issues. For one, you can't really have that at scale because you're not going to be able to bring in a ton of money. If you're crowdfunded, I don't know how much money you're going to be able to bring in. A lot, but I don't know if you'll be able to bring in the same kind of money that a Game Informer or a Kotaku could at their height or something like that. And two, if you saturate the market with the subscription services are already saturated through streaming and other stuff like that. So if you introduce more of that, then you're just saturating the market even more. This is something that I'm conscious of because of our Patreon. And it's just like, but what else is there to do? So it's like right now, Stephen Totillo, his newsletter has a paywall, which is fine. Aftermath, you can read their stories for free. I don't know if there's a limit. I don't remember, but Aftermath stories are paywalled. Jason Schreier and Cecilia D'Anastasio, they're at a traditional media site in Bloomberg, but their stories are paywalled. So it's like games media is getting to the point now where old, like New York Times, Los Angeles, blah, 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 Washington Post, where that is, where older newspapers are now paywalled. And I think that has hurt our democracy in some ways. And I don't know what that's going to mean for video games when so much original and good reporting that gets aggregated by losers like us is put behind paywalls, right?
Yeah.
Does that lead to misinformation? Does that lead to like people seeing stories and just seeing the headline and extrapolating from there? I think there's a little bit of that. And that's a future that, sucks and is worrisome. And I'm not sure how to solve it. Besides hoping that you find. And another thing is, I don't know. There's a saying, you find what you're looking for. There is a lot of good games journalism out there. You could argue games journalism's doing great in terms of content. There could be more of it, sure, but there's a lot of really good stuff out there. You have to want to find it. So if you're, I don't know. So if you're interested in video games, you kind of just have to put it to yourself to go out there and sign up for the Aftermath newsletter or something like that, because all that good reporting that you want exists. And if you're someone who is pessimistic and it's like games journalism is dead, well, you're just not paying attention then. There, like we said, there are certain ways of monetizing it that may be dead.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that the institution itself is dead. There are plenty of good reporters out there. You just kind of have to put in the effort to realize it. But if you're one of these people that's like a doomsday, games journalism doesn't exist or whatever, then you're just being lazy, because there's plenty of it out there. There could be more, but monetizing it is the difficult part. So yeah, I don't know. I've said all that stuff a million times. The other thing, of course, is synergy. I think, when people make games, make a video, Aftermath should write about it. And people make games should use Aftermath's reporting in their reporting, and vice versa. And you're seeing that right now in some places. When Stephen Tillo reports something, Eurogamer writes about it, which is good. So it's like all these different places are sort of leaning on one another, getting reports from different places. So that's good, and it would be cool to see more of that. But yeah, I don't have much else to say. Is there anything you would like to?
Oh, I was just going to tack on, when Stephen Totello or Eurogamer reports on something, we'll talk about it.
Yeah, and then we talk about it. And that was kind of the point of, that's one of the reasons we did this, was it's just, I don't know, if you can't spend time reading all this news, the next best thing is to maybe listen to a podcast
that does aggregate,
that will keep you up to speed on things. We cannot replace Stephen Totillo.
No.
If it's a choice between us and Stephen Totillo, read Stephen Totillo, and we're not going to plagiarize and just copy and paste his newsletters. But big stories, big topics. I think a way of promoting journalism is having these kinds of discussions where let's talk about the news of the week, and not just the news of the week, but let's talk about who reported it. Kotaku's Ethan Gotch, Stephen Totillo, Jason Schreier, whatever.
D'Anastasio.
Right? Cecilia D'Anastasio. So it's like not just talk about the news itself, but talk about where did it originate? You hear about, did you hear this happened? Oh yeah, but it's like, but where did that start?
Yeah.
Who first reported that? And especially in today with like Twitter and social media and TikTok, where sometimes you hear about something, but it is decontextualized and it's been put through a telephone game or a bunch of like, I don't know what brain rot means, but a bunch of crazed, like brain rotted people, always online people have passed it around. And the thing that you see is like
lacking context,
or doesn't have like the original reporting. And I think that's important.
Yeah.
So yeah, sorry, not to insult everyone that's on TikTok, but come on, everybody that's on TikTok is a loser. I think that's true. And everyone off of TikTok is a loser. I'm calling every human being a loser. I think we can all accept that.
I'm calling out. Yeah.
Oprah. Do we have just a little N64 reference there for you? Do we have a?
Speaking of references, I referenced that in my most recent blog post.
Really?
Yeah. The creature I chose it's a little rock elemental, and so I was like, it gives an opportunity for your player who chose Primordial as one of their exotic languages to talk with a rock person, and everyone else hears like grinding, like guttural noises, but you could just make them sound like Korg.
That channel, one of the classics. We don't have Richard here, so we can't do. You know what? Give me the tidbit. I've got a tidbit for us. Go ahead. What if I told you, in this world, there are bits, and there are tids, and Richard is the only man who can put them together into tidbits. So I wanted to bring this up because Star Wars Outlaws has a roadmap, and this bothers me because it's just a single player game. Why does it need a roadmap? Why can't you just release the game and then put all this extra stuff in an expansion pack?
Okay, yeah.
Why do you have to make a roadmap that is structured? Why do you have to have the season pass? I know this is not the first single player game with a season pass. I have it in front of me and I'm annoyed. And it's just,
I was going to say,
what?
There are some single player games. There are some single player games where I'm fine with them having a roadmap. There are some single player games where I'm fine with them having a season pass. Crusader Kings had a roadmap and a season pass.
Okay, but because when they release the game, everything is still T-posed and shit. So like,
well, no, it's just everything's in a.
They just released the code. It's just CC plus. You hit execute, you hit play on Steam, and it just opens the command prompt. It's like, okay, here's Crusader Kings. Mods will fix it. Yeah. Sorry, what
fix it, adapt it.
Okay.
No, I was just saying, like, I understand why some games have roadmaps, why some games have season passes. This one, I don't know.
Yeah, because it's a single-player Ubisoft game.
Yeah.
So fuck off, Ubisoft. Just
boo this man. Boo
this man. Fire Yves Chameau. Hire me. I'll run Ubisoft. Damn it.
And I could put on a French accent.
Yeah, I will. We will play a Star Wars. Like, there you go. I don't know. Is that insensitive? Can you be insensitive to
I don't know. The French are like shooting out a lot of racism towards foreign countries at the Olympics right now, so they deserve it.
Yeah, every French person. No, I know a French guy, Sylvester. He's awesome.
Okay.
Yeah.
He's the one that's safe. He's the only one that's safe.
I've been to France. Lots of nice people in France.
Yeah,
there's one person that's not nice, and his name's Yves Chameau. And
I don't even think he's French. I think he's Belgian.
Is he? I don't know. Was he born in Belgium? I really don't know. We'll Google it real quick just to figure out.
Oh no, he is French.
He is French. Okay, where was he born?
Cantois, France.
Cantois, France. Huh.
I don't even know if I'm pronouncing that right.
Cantois.
It's maybe. In Western France.
Western France. Huh. Okay. It's probably beautiful. Follow us on patreon.com/gamingdiscourse, youtube.com/thegamingdiscourse. Go check out my interview with Chet Falasek. We got other stuff in the works, so I'll post an update on Patreon this week, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.